Alright, peace and greetings YouTubers. Okay, so some of you on Twitter and in my YouTube inbox kept saying, well, when are you going to make another R&B is Dead video? And I was like, well, I didn't know you guys were actually really watching these based off of the views that I kept getting in my video manager. But you guys had asked for it, so I will give it to you. Thank you for at least pretending to watch my videos. Okay, so let me get right into it. This is another edition of R&B is Dead, What the F Happened. Today I want to talk about the actual music production in the albums as far as musicality, cohesiveness, and consistency. Alright, when I think of the phrase cohesive album, I think of an album that takes me on a journey. It has a beginning, a middle, and an end. It has a theme, it has a tone, it has its own unique sound, it complements the actual artist. You know, it takes you on a journey along with that artist, and you feel like you get to know that artist a little bit better. And sometimes you even relate to whatever they're singing about. You know, the album just has its own unique feel. It fits with the time of what's going on in life in reality. You know, it has a timeless sound to it. It's not full of whatever goes on with the trends at the moment, but it has its own unique direction that will most likely carry over into a few years after whatever trend that's popular during that time dies out. You know, even with the track listing, you know, I really enjoy it when an album has all the up-tempo club bangers, everything at the front, and then it kind of mellows out towards the middle with the mid-tempos, and then by the time you get to the end of the album, it's just slow jams and raindrops and wind and poems and stuff, all that crap. You know, that's a really great cohesive album, at least for me. And you know, some artists do a really great job of giving you cohesive albums because, as I said, cohesive albums, they solidify your artwork. They solidify what you do as an artist. And when you come out with that cohesive album and you set your standard here, it makes people anticipate the next project. So that's why it's important that you are consistent with those albums. So that way, when you come out with this album and you come out with the second one, you can't come out with an album that's way down here as far as the standard, because now you've kind of, you know, you've turned off some of those people that were just interested in what you were doing, which is why you want to be consistent. One way to tell if an artist is really good with dropping cohesive albums consistently is you ask somebody who's a fan of that artist what's their favorite album. If they have a hard time telling you, it's probably because that artist has a few, you know, a good bunch of albums that they seem to appreciate, you know, in different ways where they can't pick a favorite. Like, you ask a freaking Maxwell fan, what's your favorite Maxwell album? Some of them be like, I can't tell you. It's between Urban Hang, Sweet, and Embryo. You know, you ask a Prince fan, what's your favorite Prince album? They'll be like, what are you, crazy? Because, you know, Prince fans are kind of lunatic. There's no such thing as a favorite Prince album. Prince is the greatest thing to ever come to music. And, you know, ask a Stevie fan, you know, what's your favorite Prince or Stevie album? They're going to, the Intervisions and Talking Box and Songs in the Key, like them three, oh, you want to talk about some World War III, because people are going to sit there and argue and cuss you out between those three albums. You know, you ask a Brandy fan, what's your favorite Brandy album? They're going to talk all around the world about Never Say Never, Full Moon, and probably Aphrodisiac. And maybe 211. You ask Erykah Badu fans, Mama's Gun, Badu is Worldwide Underground. You ask an Alicia Keys fan, because Alicia gives you 4 really different albums, and I know the 5th one just came out today. You know, Alicia fans can't decide on what's their favorite album. You ask a Jill Scott, you guys see where I'm going with this, right? Or whatever. You ask a Janet fan, what's her favorite album? They're going to give you one of those Super 5, Control, Rhythm Nation, Janet, Velvet Rope, all for you. You ask a Toni Braxton fan, they're going to probably give you Toni Braxton, Secrets of Libra. Like, it's just, when you're consistent with giving albums that your fans anticipate and enjoy, and these albums continue a journey, it brings people in. I don't know if I already said it or not, but like I was saying, as an artist, your entire music catalog is a journey. So each album should be a continuation of where you're going. So sometimes, like one artist, I don't feel like name dropping because I'll get to them later, but you know, one artist that I love near and dear to my heart, one of my favorites in the world, has always had a great history or a great run with doing great consistent albums. But then their most recent album, they didn't write a single song on it, and they got with all the popular producers that were out, and even though the album was cool, it wasn't an album that complemented what they had done in the past. So it didn't even feel like a real album from them. Janet, Discipline. So, you know, even though that was a catchy, fun little album for 2008, I hate that CD with a passion. I don't even remember the last time I played that crap. Love you, Janet. But, moving right along. So, it's important that artists are consistent. And I think it's important also when you're dealing with trends, because trends are something that get a lot of people caught up, alright? Trends work, trends are great if you're an artist that wants to live in the moment and be successful for that time period. Whatever trend is popular, if you want to get all your number ones, you go ahead and you hop on whatever's going on. But what happens is when that trend dies, you go down with it. Case in point, Donna Summer and disco. Donna Summer was the queen of disco. You want to talk about racking up some number ones like it was nothing. She was having her a good time in the late 70s. Then disco died. And Donna Summer had a hard time crossing over into the other genres. And she tried to do the whole R&B sound and the dance. But people weren't really into that. So Donna Summer slowly faded away. She didn't start flopping, but she just kind of slowly faded away. Alright? That's kind of what happened with Sierra. As far as her being the princess or the queen of crunk and B, 04, 05, even 06, she was hot. Sierra was a say-all, be-all. This is when the tables were turned between her and Rihanna. And Rihanna was the who, and Sierra was the hey. And, Sierra, queen, crunk and B, princess, oh, she's the next whatever, and she's like the female Michael Jackson, all that crap. And, she's doing all that stuff, but what happened is because her marketing team placed her in that bubble as being the crunk and B princess, all right? When Crunk and B or Crunk died, she's in a position now where she's trying to climb out of that bubble. And you look at what happened with Fantasy Rider, which was a great little album, by the way, and Basic Instinct, she's not catching on with the masses because the masses have placed her in this bubble. They don't want to see her do the Euro dance pop music because it doesn't add up. They remember Sierra doing a Matrix back in the day. So it just, to the little hood beat. So it doesn't add up to some people. So trends can get you in trouble. That's why I say as an entertainer, if you want to work with a trend, you set the trend that everybody else is going to follow. You don't hop on a trend that's already out. Or if you're going to do that, you have to be creative with it. Like, I think one thing Rihanna just did that was really, really smart. Even though y'all know I don't check for her. But she's smart because I said if she's going to come out with another album, she can't come out with another European dance pop sound because that sound is not dying, but it's not as big as it was even a year and a half ago. So she came out with the whole Diamond song. I said that's really clever because now you're not locking yourself in a bubble because it would have been career suicide for her to come out with a third lead-off dance European single in a row. Like, we were like, get out of here, Rihanna, sit down. So she was smart. Still don't mean you didn't sing. But she did her thing. So, and she got her #1 album, finally. Okay. So back to this trends. And going back with the trends, what I think is important is your production team, who you work with. I hate when artists work with 35,000 different producers on one album because what happens is they work with those 35,000 producers in that bubble, but those are also the same 35,000 producers that all the other 35,000 entertainers work with. So everybody gives you the same album. Okay, no matter what R&B album you buy, I bet you I'm going to find the Sean Garrett production on there. I bet you I'm going to find the Brian Michael Cox production on there. I bet you, depending on who it is, you might even still find a Missy track on there. It's like some people just don't catch on. You can't hop on the sound that everybody else is already hopping on because your individuality disappears. Some entertain, like I think as an entertainer, it's best to work exclusively with a team that knows your craft, knows your voice, knows you as an artist. Case in point, Toni Braxton and Babyface. The Secrets album and the Toni Braxton album were two really great cohesive albums, and they worked. Babyface was so good with Toni, he knew exactly how to compliment her voice. Like, case in point, I can picture them in the studio recording the Secrets album. Like, Toni, it's me, Babyface. And I just wrote this song called Why Should I Care? Now, I was going to give it to somebody else, but I want you to have it. Now, see, I'm a tenor, and on top of that, I'm a light tenor. I have a very light voice. You're a contralto or a contralto, whatever you want to call it, but you have a heavy voice. And I think we're missing one element. So let's call Shantae Moore, who's a mezzo-soprano, and, she has a very crystal clear, angelic voice. Let us three get together and let's blend and do some background vocals. If you guys haven't heard the song Why Should I Care, it's a very interesting R&B song because the vocals are just, those are some good background vocals because what they've done is they've gotten the best of 3 different worlds and blended them together, and they just blend really well. So check out Toni Braxton, Why Should I Care? I'll even post it right there. All right. Another example, great production team, Janet Jackson, Jimmy Jam, and Terry Lewis. All right. That is probably the most foolproof, perfect formula for Lord. And I give Janet a lot of credit all the time in my videos, and I bring her up, but I just feel that her career is a perfect example of what to follow when the times are good, okay? I can't speak for life after 2004, but between 86 and 2001, Janet was running the show. So, let me get to her. Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis were so good with Janet, all right? They were able to mesh well, and I mean, this was a collaborative effort where all three of them were doing their equal part. Janet's in there writing and doing her thing. Jimmy Jam is getting the beats and everything. And on top of that, Janet is in there on the pianos. I don't know if y'all know this, but she has piano credits on her first 4 albums playing instruments. I'm like, she was up in there doing everything. And what happened was, Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis were so good with what they did, every single Janet song that was released physically in the United States between 1986 and 2001, aside from Pleasure Principle and Son of a Gun, were all top 10 hits on the Hot 100. Okay? Because they crafted and figured out what worked for Janet Jackson. An artist who at the time came out when power vocalists were what was in. She was no Whitney Houston vocally. She was no Phyllis Hyman. She was no Mickey Howard. You couldn't even put her in a room. Well, I was about to say Patty. What was I thinking? All right. You know, she couldn't hang with the big leagues, but they figured out what to do with her voice. She also was someone who, or Jimmy Jam, Terry Lewis, and Janet together, I think were also a group of people that really did a great job of introducing layered vocals. As far, like if you hear the song like Come Back to Me or Ralph Tresvant's Sensitivity, like when those background vocals, when you hear the artists singing over themselves, before then a lot of times the artists didn't do their own background vocals. They'd come and bring other people in because, you know, it works that way. But they were like, well, Janet probably wasn't comfortable letting other people hear her raw vocals, so she did her own background. But stuff like that plays a role. Enough on Janet, I'm talking too much about her. But, you know, I really think it's great, or it's important for you sometimes to establish yourself with a group of producers that really know you as an artist. And I also think it's good sometimes to go and give a chance to the underground producers you've never heard of. You know, Timbaland and Missy. Nobody knew who they were in 95, 96, or whatever. You know, Missy did a little something with her group sister, and she was on the Raven Simone song, and nobody knew who Timbaland was, whatever. And when you go back to 95, right before Aaliyah's One in a Million album was about to come out, everybody in 95 had the same type of punk, or it might be a little bit slower. Everybody had that same mid-tempo 95 sounding song. Timbaland came in here and gave us One in a Million. And some people may not think that song was all that, but when you look at the production, when you look at the loop, actually I don't even know if they were doing loops yet in 95, 96, but the drum track, that like, nobody was doing that yet. So, while everybody else was still creeping with TLC and all that and everything else, here comes Aaliyah and she drops One in a Million. Everybody's like, whoa, did y'all just hear what happened with these drums? I don't even know how to, I can't even bounce to that, because remember, we could still bounce all day in 95. And then One in a Million came out, and you didn't know if the song was fast, you didn't know if it was slow, you couldn't figure out what to do with the song. But it gave a new sound that set the tone for what everything was going to sound like in 97, 98. And you go to 97, 98, Timbaland and Missy produced many of the R&B hits and hip-hop hits that were out during that time. They created their own trend that everybody followed suit with. You know, that's what you have to do as an artist. What else was I going to say? And the same can be said with Darkchild, who was, when he first came out, people really weren't familiar with him. But, you know, Brandy gave him a chance with Never Say Never. Whitney gave him a chance with My Love Is Your Love. Destiny's Child gave him a chance with Writings on the Wall. He gave 3 really great projects. And by then, Michael Jackson was like, hey, you want to come work on my album? And, you know, they started on Invincible. So, and even if you, a lot of you guys aren't familiar with Teacher Moses, but if you are and you know the Complex Simplicity album, Teacher didn't go and work with 100,000 producers that everybody else was already working with. She didn't call Steve, Sean Garrett and Scott Storch and Jermaine Dupri, and no, she stuck with this guy named Paul Poley, who nobody heard of, and she gave a really cohesive and consistent album called Complex Simplicity. Alright? Sometimes those producers that we haven't heard of, because they're still hungry for it, because they're willing just to do anything to get placement on somebody's album, they give you some of the best production you've ever heard. They're giving you something you haven't heard already. And a lot of these artists just don't do that. And it's kind of just where I'm going with this video. I'm kind of wrap up because I think this is getting long. But production-wise, I really think production plays a role. So these artists have got to learn to know their craft. It doesn't make sense to go and hop on, you know, 35 different sounds with 100 different producers and think people are going to understand you as an artist. You're not going anywhere. You're dancing in circles. It's like a connect the dots puzzle, but you're not connecting the dots the right way because you've hopped with this person and that person and that person and that person and that person, and they're all doing this album, and when it comes together, it sounds like 11 tracks thrown together, and they don't flow anywhere. And I think that's what's getting a lot of people caught up. But that's just my opinion for that. I'll probably upload second edition of this because there's more to come with this one, but I didn't want to do it all in this one because this video is already way too long. So my next video is talking about the actual hustle that these R&B artists lack. I've been waiting to get to you. So that's my video. Subscribe. Good night.